Hello, everyone. This is Diana Kim, Criminal Justice Librarian. I'd like to welcome you back to the Developing a Search Strategy series. This is part 3, Connecting Keywords. So what is your goal? At the end of this video, you will know how to connect your keywords in a database using connectors to effectively retrieve articles. As you recall, there are 5 steps to building a search strategy. We talked about in part 1 how we define our topic and create a narrative research question. And from that question, we can identify our initial keywords. In part 2, we talked about how we can expand our keywords using synonyms and related terms. In this video, we will talk about how to connect those keywords with something we call connectors. And in a later video, we'll talk about how to choose what database you would like to use to enter your keywords and connectors. So how do we connect keywords in a database? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work like Google, so we couldn't just take that original narrative research question and type it into a database because we're probably going to get a bunch of irrelevant garbage that we don't need. We have to be much more strategic in our databases and tell it exactly what we want it to retrieve. To do this, rather than entering just a sentence in a line of the database in the search bar, we have to use the following words: and, or, and not. But to correctly use these connectors, you must first understand how they work. The first word is called and. And works exactly the opposite of how you would think it would. So think about it this way. If I go to a grocery store and I go to the produce section, and in a cart I add apples, bananas, pears, onions, lettuce, tomato, every time I add something additionally, apples and pears and onions, I get more items in my cart. But and works exactly the opposite of this in the database. In a database, if you use the word and, you're being specific about what types of articles you retrieve. You're saying that you won't take an article that has just the word school in it, and you don't want articles that just contain the word crime. You only want those articles that contain both the word school and the word crime. So you can see in this particular case, it's a much smaller area, a much smaller bank of articles, because both of those conditions must be met before the article will be retrieved. This term is used to connect unrelated terms. Conversely, the word or works in a much different manner. Or, if it helps you to remember, rhymes with more. So when you use the word or, you're going to retrieve more items than you will with the word and. In this particular example, we would accept any article that has the word baby in it, any article that has the word infant in it, and any articles that contain both baby and infant. So you can see in this particular case, we will have a much larger yield of articles when we use the word or. Or is typically used to connect our synonyms. So you can see here, baby or infant, those are synonyms or related terms, unlike our previous example of school and crime, which are unrelated. So just remember, or will connect our synonyms and make our results grow in number. And finally, the connector not works as an eliminator, and I typically don't use this one. It's a very unique operator. It's used pretty much as an eliminator when you have words that have the same spelling but different meanings. In this particular case, Saturn is both a planet and it used to be a type of car. And so if you wanted to make sure in the database that you are not retrieving examples or articles that are about Saturn the car, you can use not to ensure that only the articles that you retrieve will be related to the planet Saturn, for example. Another example of this would be bat, for example. Bat can be something you use in baseball. It can also be a flying mammal, for example. So if you used bat, not baseball, you're telling the database that I'm really looking for the mammal, the flying mammal bat, not that which would be used in the game of baseball. So you can see it's only used in a very limited case. And so it's not simply something I typically use because I don't really encounter that problem very often. So let's go back to our initial research question. You'll remember that we originally said, what does research tell us about the efficacy of court-ordered substance abuse treatment? How do we connect those terms using and, or, and not? Well, it's actually very, very easy. Just remember, we connect our synonyms using or and our unrelated terms using and. So here again are the underlined terms that we have from our original question. And this is what it will look like. Efficacy or effectiveness or success or successfulness, and court-ordered, court-mandated, compulsory or required, and substance abuse or drug abuse or chemical dependency or addiction, and treatment or therapy or programs. And I've created this little chart for you because this is exactly how you're going to enter it in the database. And I'll show you that in the next video. But this is exactly how you'll do it. You can see that going across from left to right, those are all of our synonyms for each line, and we're going to connect those using or. So we're telling the database in this case, we'll take articles that have the word efficacy or effectiveness, either one, or success. As long as one of those is found in an article, retrieve it. But we also need at least one of the second line, at least one of the third line, and at least one of the fourth line. So although there's a lot of different terms here, the articles that you're going to retrieve are going to be fairly specific because it's going to require 4 separate search terms to be found, but we're not too picky about which of the synonyms are used in those searches. So which connector as a knowledge check will give us the most results? Is it and, or not? The most results will be given when we use or, because or equals more. Cats or dogs or bears or elephants, any and all articles that have at least one of these terms would be welcome. So what have we learned in this video? We've learned how to connect our keywords and synonyms using and, or, and not. If you have any questions about the content of this video, please feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to give you more detail about that. We can run searches and examples if you would like some more demonstration. I'll show you how to do this in the databases in the next video. But if there's anything unclear about how and or not function, definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to go over that in more detail if you need to. But stay tuned. In part 4 of this video series, we are going to learn where to find databases on the library website, and we're going to enter our search terms in the databases to retrieve our articles. So stay tuned.